I planned a surprise for our anniversary. I'm Michael, 37, and I run quality control at North Peak Engineering in Phoenix, and I believed I knew my wife. Melissa had been acting differently for months. Not upset different, happy different, almost too upbeat. She hummed while doing the dishes, bought new clothes, went back to the gym after 2 years of putting it off. Our 10th anniversary was coming up, and she kept talking about a surprise. The way she said it made my stomach twist, like she was savoring something I was not supposed to understand yet. I asked what kind of surprise. I asked one evening while she put on makeup at 8 p.m. for what she called a book club meeting. She said I would see. She kissed my cheek, leaving a lipstick mark that I wiped off after she left. Book club meetings that ran until midnight? Weekend errands that took 4 hours? Phone calls she answered out in the garage. I was not naive, but I was not the type to search her stuff or follow her around like a jealous husband. I figured if she wanted out, she would tell me. The surprise came 3 days before our actual anniversary. I got home early from work around 3 p.m. because a shipment delay wiped out our afternoon schedule. Melissa's car was in the driveway, next to a silver BMW I did not recognize. I walked through the front door and called her name. No answer. Voices drifted down from upstairs. Melissa's laugh, and a man's voice I recognized but could not place right away. I went up the stairs. Our bedroom door was slightly open. The man said, "Michael should be home soon." He asked if she was sure. She told him to trust her, saying it was perfect timing. I pushed the door wider. They were both dressed, sitting on the edge of our bed like they were waiting for something. Melissa wore the red dress I had bought her for Christmas. The man was Raymond Torres, the financial advisor she had been
introduced me to a neighborhood barbecue 6 months earlier. Clean-cut guy in his 40s who drove the BMW and talked about investment ideas. Melissa said, "Surprise," and stood up with a smile that made my blood run cold. They were not undressed, they were not scrambling to cover themselves. They were just sitting there, like this was supposed to happen, like I was supposed to join a conversation I had walked into midway. But the way they looked at each other told me everything. The way Raymond's hand rested on her knee, the way she leaned toward him when she laughed. I stood in the doorway for maybe 10 seconds. Neither of them said anything else. Melissa kept smiling like she was proud of herself. I turned around, went downstairs, grabbed my keys, and left. I drove to a downtown Marriott, checked in for a week, paid cash, turned off my phone, sat on the bed and stared at the wall until dark. 10 years of marriage. We met at Arizona State when I was finishing my engineering degree. She studied marketing and had big plans to start her own consulting business. Smart, beautiful, the kind who turned heads when she walked into a room. We bought a house in Scottsdale 5 years ago. We split everything 50-50, even though my salary at North Peak was higher. She eventually let go of the consulting idea and worked part-time at a boutique downtown. She said she wanted to focus on us, maybe start a family someday. That someday never came. Every time I brought up kids, she found a reason to wait. More money, better timing, her career, my career, always something. Raymond had appeared at the Henderson barbecue last summer. Tom Henderson introduced him as a financial advisor who would help their portfolio grow 15% in 6 months. Impressive numbers. Melissa spent most of that evening talking with him about investments.
strategies. We should diversify our portfolio, she said on the drive home. Raymond thinks we are being too cautious. I did not dwell on it. Melissa had always chased money ideas, ways to earn more. She started with coffee meetings with Raymond about our finances, then lunches, then weekend sessions, spreading papers across our dining table to talk trends and markets. He's really helping us, she said when I asked why they met so often. You should trust me on this. Trust felt different now, as I sat in a hotel room while my wife was with her lover in our home. The signs had been there. Phone calls she took outside, credit card charges at restaurants I had never visited, a gym membership she said was for yoga, but she never brought home a mat. 3 months ago, Raymond asked me to introduce him to some of my colleagues at North Peak. He called it professional networking and mutual benefit. I gave him contacts for 5 guys at work, engineers with solid salaries and retirement funds they hoped to grow. Tom Henderson had spoken well of Raymond, and the numbers he showed looked legitimate. "These are good people," I told Raymond when I shared their info. "Do not waste their time unless you can deliver." "Of course," he said, shaking my hand. "I appreciate the trust." There it was again. Trust. I ordered room service and ate in silence. Tomorrow, I would start figuring out what came next. On the 3rd day at the hotel, I called a private investigator. His name was Frank Sullivan, a retired Phoenix police detective who now handled divorce cases and corporate fraud. I found his number online and met him at a diner on
Camelback Road. Standard cheating spouse investigation? He asked after I explained the situation. "Start there," I said, "but I want everything. Her finances, his business, how long this has gone on, what they plan next." Frank was in his 60s, gray-haired with tired eyes, the kind you see on someone who has watched every kind of betrayal. "Is this one of those cases where you want me to dig up dirt so you can burn them down?" "I want the truth, all of it." "Truth costs extra. Are you sure you want to know it all?" I nodded. Frank called me 2 days later. "We need to meet. Bring a notebook." This time we met at his office, a small space above a coffee shop in Central Phoenix. Frank had 3 manila folders on his desk. "Your wife has been seeing Raymond Torres for 8 months, he began. "But that is not the interesting part." He opened the first folder. Bank statements, investment records, emails, and notes. Raymond Torres is running a Ponzi scheme. Classic pattern. Early investor funds are used to pay fake returns to later investors. It creates a picture of success that pulls in more victims. My stomach sank. "Your wife knows. She has been recruiting through her social circle and gets a cut for each deposit she brings in, 5% on initial investments." Frank opened the second folder. Photos of Melissa meeting with people I knew, neighbors, friends from church, women from her book club that apparently was real. "She has worked as her recruiter for 6 months. The affair gives cover for their business meetings. The romance keeps them both engaged." The third folder had the hardest part. "Remember those colleagues you sent to Raymond? All 5 invested. A total of $430,000 from your contacts alone. The money is gone. Raymond has been paying fake returns, using money from newcomers, but the well is running dry." I stared at the files, seeing names I knew, people who acted on my recommendation. "How much in total?" I asked. "Around $2.3 million from about 40 investors. Your wife brought in roughly 60% through her network," Frank said, leaning back. "There is more. Raymond plans to vanish soon, liquidating assets. Your wife has been helping him shift money to offshore accounts." I sat there trying to process it all. My marriage was done. That hurt, but I had accepted it. What made me sick was knowing people I cared about lost savings because they trusted me. "What proof do you have?" I asked. Frank said, "Enough to bury them." I spent the next day going through his records, statements, photos, and recorded calls. The scale was larger than I had imagined. Melissa was not only unfaithful, she was also targeting our circle for fraud. The files showed Raymond pitching 15% yearly on safe-sounding investments. He used proper jargon and showed doctored reports to prove a fake track record. New clients saw payouts for a few months, money that actually came from later victims. Melissa made it work. She gave credibility and access. When she vouched for him to book club friends or neighbors, people believed her. When I sent him to my colleagues, they believed me. Frank even had recordings about their strategy. In one call, Melissa said, "Michael's engineer friends are perfect. They know numbers, but not finance. Easy targets." Hearing that broke something in me. I called Frank from the hotel. "I want to confront them. Set up a meeting." "Bad idea," Frank said.
If you tip them off, they run. Raymond is already moving money offshore. Spook them now, and your friends will never see a dime. Then what? I asked. Let me build for another 1,000 week or two, he said. Then we bring in federal agencies. SEC for investment fraud, FBI for wire fraud and laundering. How long before they bolt? I asked. Hard to say, but Raymond has tightened up lately. Fewer new clients, more calls to banks in the Cayman Islands. I hung up and stared at the hotel walls. 2 weeks felt endless. The next morning, I broke my rule and drove past the house. Melissa was gone. Raymond's BMW sat in my driveway like he owned it. I parked across the street and called Frank. Change of plans. I am going to talk to them. Michael, do not, he said. I hung up and walked to the front door. Raymond answered wearing one of my old Arizona State shirts, holding a cup of coffee. Coffee from my kitchen. Made from my machine. Michael, he said, not surprised. Melissa said you were staying elsewhere. This is still my house. Of course, come in. The casual invite to my own home made my hands shake. Melissa sat at the kitchen table, papers everywhere, statements and account summaries. She looked up as I walked in. We need to talk, she said. About what? I asked. About our future. About Raymond's business. About your mistake walking out. She said it like I was the one who messed up. I know about the Ponzi scheme, I said. Raymond's cup froze halfway up. Melissa's face went pale. I don't know what you mean, Raymond said. 2.3 million, 40 investors.
Lost $400,000 because I vouch for you. Melissa stood up. You do not understand what you are saying. I understand just fine. You have been recruiting people for him and getting paid to wreck the lives of our friends. Raymond set down his coffee. Michael, you are upset about the marriage, but business is business. Your friends made their own choices as adults, based on what they were told. If you think it was fraud, prove it in court, Melissa said. Otherwise, you are only accusing people. The ice in her voice shocked me. This was not the woman I married. This was someone I no longer knew. I want you both out of my house, I said. Raymond smiled. That is not how this works. Legally, this is also Melissa's home. Arizona is community property state. She has every right to stay. And I can invite my business partner here, Melissa added. Business partner. That is what she called him now? I left without another word. They were smiling as I walked out. Back at the hotel, I called Frank and told him what happened. You warned them, he said. They will speed things up now. Good. Let them run. You have enough to prosecute. Maybe, but I found something bigger. Frank showed up 20 minutes later with a new folder. After you left, I dug deeper into Raymond's past. This is not his first Ponzi scheme. He spread papers across the small table. Raymond Torres is actually Raymond Terrell. 3 years ago in Colorado, he ran a similar scam. He took about $1.8 million and fled before charges. How is he using a new name? False ID, fake Social Security, but a real license and credit file in the Torres name, Frank said.
Then he opened another section. Here is the twist. Your wife did not just meet him at a barbecue. She sought him out. She found him on forums about investment fraud. She knew who he was. The room spun. Melissa was the one who initiated contact. More than that, she put in seed money, $25,000 from our joint savings, taken out as cash over 2 months. Raymond used it to fake early credibility with the first investors. Frank showed me bank statements I had never seen. Cash withdrawals Melissa made while I was at work. She is not just a recruiter. She is a partner, an equal in the fraud. How did she find him? Online research. She studied scams for more than a year before reaching out. She downloaded guides on Ponzi methods and joined forums where fraud tactics were discussed. Frank laid out printed pages. Her user profile on those forums talked about victim psychology and recruitment. She planned the whole operation. The affair was secondary to the money. I sat on the bed reading her posts. She wrote detailed notes on how scams work, on choosing victims, on building trust with potential investors. One line chilled me. The key is leveraging existing relationships. People who trust you will also trust your recommendations, without real due diligence. How long has she planned this? I asked. Based on her activity, at least 18 months. She studied cases, learned what worked, and what got people caught. Then she found Raymond and offered a partnership. Frank closed the file. There is something else. They are planning
to vanish next week. They booked flights to Mexico under false names. Raymond has been liquidating what is left. They think you will need months to grasp the full scope. They are running together, partners in crime and in escape. The affair was likely baked into the plan. It is easier to coordinate illegal acts when you're romantically involved. I stood and looked out the hotel window. Phoenix stretched below. City lights marked neighborhoods where our victims lived. People who trusted Melissa and me. What is the timeline for federal charges? If we deliver evidence tomorrow, they could issue warrants within a week. But Raymond and Melissa will be gone by then, Frank said. Unless we move faster. He nodded. I have enough to bring them down, but we must be strategic. What do you suggest? Let them feel safe, then hit with everything at once. Public exposure, federal charges, asset seizures, total collapse. Do it. Frank and I spent the next 2 days planning the takedown. We needed to move fast and still ensure maximum impact. Coordination is the key, Frank said. Hit from multiple angles at the same time. They cannot run if they are dealing with immediate crises. Step 1 was documentation. Frank had compiled strong evidence of the scheme, but we needed more proof of Melissa's lead role. He installed surveillance near the house and captured planning conversations. Step 2 was protecting the victims. Frank alerted the SEC and FBI and shared preliminary files to launch official cases. Federal teams can be slow, but they can freeze assets once probable cause exists. Step 3 was
public exposure. Frank had contacts with investigative reporters at the Arizona Republic. Local fraud with community victims is exactly their beat. We will time the releases, Frank said. Agents serve warrants, the paper runs the story, and you deliver the final blow. What is the final blow? Frank smiled. You will see. We set everything for Thursday morning. Raymond and Melissa had tickets to Mexico for Friday night. They believed they had one more day to finish the escape. Thursday morning at 6 a.m., FBI agents knocked on my front door. Frank and I watched from across the street as they served warrants and arrested Raymond and Melissa. Both were led away in cuffs while agents carried boxes of evidence from the house. At 8 a.m., the Arizona Republic ran a front-page story titled, "Local Couple Defrauds Investors of Millions in Ponzi Scheme." It included photos of Raymond and Melissa, details of the operation, and quotes from victims who lost their savings. At 10 a.m., the SEC announced a civil action seeking asset recovery and restitution. Frank's final blow landed at noon. He had prepared sealed packets for every victim. Each packet contained documentation showing how they were targeted, evidence of the criminal partnership between Raymond and Melissa, and proof that the affair was part of the business plan. The packets also included copies of Melissa's online posts about victim psychology and recruitment. I was in the hotel lobby when Frank called. "Deliveries are done," he said. 43 victims now have complete evidence of the kind, including your 5 colleagues. How are they reacting? Check your phone.
I turned on my phone for the first time in a week. 37 missed calls, dozens of texts. Tom Henderson from work wrote, "I received the packet. I cannot believe Melissa planned the whole thing. Are you okay?" Janet Morrison from the neighborhood said, "I saw the news. I am sorry you went through this. Melissa fooled all of us." Dave Collins from North Peak Engineering texted, "I got the documents. We do not blame you. You were a victim too." Messages kept coming. Anger at Raymond and Melissa, sympathy for me, and thanks for Frank's investigation. The most important note came from Frank. "Turn on Channel 12 News." I found a TV in the hotel bar. The noon broadcast was live from the Maricopa County Jail. Raymond and Melissa were being led toward court for their arraignment hearing. Melissa looked straight into the camera as reporters shouted questions. Her face was pale, her carefully styled hair undone. The confident woman who smiled while betraying me was gone. Raymond kept his head down, but fear was in his eyes. The reporter said they were held without bail pending federal trial. The judge decided they were flight risks based on plans to flee to Mexico. I watched my wife disappear inside the courthouse and felt something I did not expect: relief. The trial lasted 3 months. Frank's evidence was overwhelming. Financial records, recorded calls, online posts, victim testimony, and proof of the planned escape. I testified for 2 days, explaining how I had unknowingly helped them reach my colleagues. The prosecutor made clear I was a victim, not a conspirator. Melissa's lawyer tried to pin everything on Raymond, saying she was manipulated and coerced, but her own posts destroyed that claim. The jury saw her detailed plans to manipulate victims. Raymond's attorney said the investments were real but poorly run. Fake statements and offshore transfers made that argument impossible. The federal prosecutor was relentless. This was not desperation, she said. It was a calculated destruction of trust and financial security. They studied victims, exploited relationships, and planned to flee when the scheme collapsed. Victim impact statements took a full day. 43 people described losing retirement funds, college savings, and money for care. Several were my coworkers from North Peak Engineering. Dave Collins spoke in court. "I trusted Michael's word because I trusted Michael." Melissa and Raymond turned that friendship into a weapon. The jury deliberated 6 hours. Guilty on all counts: wire fraud, securities fraud, money laundering, conspiracy, and identity theft. Melissa received 12 years in federal prison. Raymond received 15 years as the primary operator. The judge ordered full asset forfeiture and restitution, though much of the money was gone. I stood outside the courthouse as Melissa was led away in cuffs. She looked at me once, her face empty of the confidence she had that day in our bedroom. Raymond would not meet anyone's eyes. Frank stood beside me on the steps. "How do you feel?" "I feel empty, but clean." The victims recovered about 30 cents on the dollar through forfeiture. Not much, but something. My colleagues at North Peak Engineering eventually forgave me, understanding I had never intended harm and worked to make it right. I sold the house, settled the divorce, and started over. Older, but wiser.
Been deceived, too.
I sold the house in Scottsdale. Too many memories of betrayal. I bought a smaller place in Tempe, closer to work, just room for me. Melissa's book club friends and neighbors learned the truth from the news and from Frank's evidence packets. They realized they had all been marked for recruitment at one time or another. Finding out their friend had calculated them as potential targets for a scam erased any remaining sympathy. 6 months after the trial, I got a letter from Melissa in federal prison. She wanted to explain herself and claimed she loved Raymond and made mistakes. I tossed it after the first paragraph. Frank and I kept in touch. He moved on to other cases, but checked in now and then to see how I was. "You did the right thing," he told me over coffee. "Many would have walked away and left the victims with nothing." I went back to work at North Peak. The company stood by me through the investigation and trial. My coworkers treated me with respect, knowing I had been deceived like them. Melissa and Raymond faced full consequences when the scheme collapsed. A federal probe made everything clear. Melissa served 12 years, while her reputation fell apart as reports detailed how coldly she mapped the manipulation of friends and neighbors. Her social circle cut her off when they learned she had weighed them as targets, treating trust like a sales lead, not like a real relationship. Raymond got 15 years and later picked up extra time when a Colorado case surfaced. His advisor license was revoked for good. They lost homes, cars, and assets through forfeiture, left with debt and ruined names when released. The 43 victims filed civil suits so future income would be garnished for restitution.
Melissa's family distanced themselves after seeing the scale of the deceit. Raymond was blacklisted across finance. What looked like a romance became evidence of a conspiracy, adding years and killing any chance of rebuilding wealth. Walking away from the courthouse, I realized her betrayal taught me the gap between trust and verification. In marriage and friendship and in business, real integrity means guarding the people who rely on you, not exploiting their confidence for personal gain. It took time, but I built a quieter life with solid walls and honest people. I wake early, make coffee, and head to work. Simple routines feel like a gift now. Some evenings I drive past the old neighborhood. I remember the people who were hurt and the ones who helped put things right. I cannot fix every loss, but I can live honestly, and that is where I start. I choose steady work and honest friends. Trust takes time. I'm patient. I will protect the people who trust me, not with promises, but with actions. That is my new life.